Now, a record 1 billion people worldwide are hungry, and a new report says the number will increase if governments don't spend more on agriculture. According to the UN Food Agency, which issued the report, 30 countries now require emergency aid, two-thirds of them in Africa.
Well, amongst the developing countries, Brazil wins the top spot, with the aid agency praising President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva's support for land reform and community kitchens for the poor.
China's also praised for cutting the number of hungry by 58 million in 10 years through strong state support for smallholder farmers.
But the report criticises economically liberal India, where it says 30 million people have been added to the ranks of the hungry since the mid-1990s.
Africa is the worst hit. 20 countries there need emergency aid. Well, with us now from Delhi is Salil, Shetty, the UN's Millennium Campaign Director. Thanks very much for joining us from Delhi. Obviously, it's Diwali season, a time to celebrate, and yet these numbers on India are really shameful, aren't they?
Yeah, I think, in the first instance, really comparing China with anybody else is difficult, because China has made spectacular progress and so has Brazil. But I think India does have some big challenges, and really we have to learn many lessons from countries like China and Brazil, where it's just not political commitment from the highest levels, but very carefully designed programs which are targeted at the poorest people in each of these countries. So a long way to go, but I think India has made some progress. It needs to move much faster if you want to achieve the Millennium Development Goals by the year 2015.
And you talk about enough on-the-ground work. How much is this to do with real commitment from governments?
Well, governments really ultimately, the major programs are run by the governments. So if the governments are not able to deliver, so I mean, in India, most developing countries that say, we would say that now the policy frameworks are much better, but the financing is still inadequate. We need to put in a lot more money to achieve these Millennium Development Goals, including hunger and maternal mortality, for example, women dying during childbirth. A lot more investment is required. But the biggest problems we have right now are at the implementation level. The bottlenecks at the implementation level are very serious, and the resources are not still reaching the people who need them the most. So in the case of India, for example, it's really the untouchable groups, the Dalits, the Adivasis, the tribals, the Muslim minorities, the poorest people in the country, and women. Women generally are still continuing to really, be left behind.
And obviously this World Food Day, what is the purpose behind that? Is it going to actually achieve anything?
I think, this is a very important weekend. We have what is called the Stand Up and Take Action mobilization across the world. It's International Poverty Eradication Day tomorrow, World Food Day today. And I think it's very important. These are moments like last year we had 116 million people joining hands to stand up and take action for the Millennium Development Goals against poverty. And it's really to remind world leaders that these commitments which they have made have to be kept. You cannot afford to ignore the needs and rights of the poorest people in the world. The cost of ignoring their needs and their rights is very serious, because we end up spending so much money later on addressing things like terrorism and conflict and violence, when most of the causes are really the non-achievement of the basic needs, or the non-delivery of the basic needs and rights of these people.
Yes, well, I see the US is described as being miserly in its aid to third world farmers. Salil, Shetty, I'm afraid we'll have to leave it there. Thanks very much indeed.
President Obama has been visiting New Orleans to review progress in reviving the city following its devastation by Hurricane Katrina 4 years ago. More than 1,600 people were killed and 1 million were forced to leave their homes as the storm crashed into America's Gulf Coast. The BBC's Andy Gallagher reports now on the president's trip.